Hello everybody, today I'm going to give you my thoughts on prize-winning books. It's something I've been asked a few times. I've started getting a pattern of questions hitting me. Usually they're to do with prize winners, they're to do with translations, and they're to do with rereading, slow reading, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this channel to the occasional Q&A, and this one's going to be based on prize-winning books, and I'm going to try and do this without giving any examples, because in all honesty, I don't like doing the negative stuff. I like talking about positive stuff, books that I love, writers that I love, things that I love, and to spend too much time hyper-focused on something that you don't like, I just think, you could just not do that, push it out of your life, and go do something fun and positive, which is typically what I do, because actually, I don't read prize winners. Now, I'm not going to say any names. Immediately, you're probably going to think of a few names of different prizes, and that's okay. I have tried so hard. Actually, part of the Hardcore Literature Book Club, back last year, I was going to make a series of one prize winner per month, and I was going to do a reading, and I got a bunch of them. And I found myself losing the will to live reading through these books. Again, no names. There was a couple of poets, there was a couple of fiction writers, a couple of non-fiction writers, and I started to think, because I've seen all these videos and I've heard people talk, and they talk about book slumps, right? And they'll talk about not, losing the motivation to read. And I have not lost the motivation to read for a long time now, but I do identify with it. I remember a few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago at this point, I often just didn't want to read. Oh, I'm not in the mood for reading. Or, I just, there's weeks at a time when life's more interesting. I can't identify with that right now. And it's all down to book choice. I'm picking the best books over the expanse of literature. The sad fact is that we don't live long enough to read frivolously. We're not going to live 1,000 years. And there's definitely a lot of books that we should bring our care and attention to, books that we're going to fall in love with. And my opinion is that the reread is more important than the actual initial read. So if you haven't got that much time, and realistically you want to reread the important books, and the important books are the ones that resonate with you, why are you, reading books that you should be reading, or reading books that, promote this identity, or do this social, pioneer this, or spearhead this social movement? The thing is, there's plenty of great literature that does that sort of thing, without only doing that sort of thing. If that is the first and foremost aim of a writer, then they're not going to create good art. Art has to come first. Good, faithful representations of character, narrative that comes from nature. We can go on and on and on, but art, it should be an experience. It should be an experience that sweeps you up, gives you a platter of different emotions, makes you think about yourself and the human condition, sharpens your empathy, helps you talk to yourself better, helps you talk to other people better. And a lot of these prize winners, they tick a couple of political boxes, and that's why they win. Now, do they have some literary merit? Yeah, of course. Do they have a lot of it? Typically, no. Now, this isn't a blanket, because you can definitely go to some of the main popular prize lists and you can see some very inspired choices that I would agree with. But sometimes, no. And so when people say, I just can't be bothered reading, I'm like, well, what are you reading? Because if you're reading Tolstoy, if you're reading Austen, if you're reading Hugo, if you're reading Dickens, if you're reading George Eliot, I can go on and on and on. If you're reading Chekhov, if you're reading, who's a good poet? Browning, yeah? If you're reading Emily Dickinson of a night, are you going to lose the will to bring yourself fully to literature? I don't think so, because these are vitalists. These are people who have gusto, yeah? People don't talk about gusto anymore. Verve, spirit, spunk. They have a wellspring of energy inside them. They relish creating imaginary worlds. It's powerful. They harness lightning and they put it in a book and give it to you. They give a piece of their soul to you. We don't talk about gusto anymore. Shakespeare is a writer of gusto. Tolstoy is a writer of gusto. So is Austen. And we don't do that anymore. Modernism crushed that. Now, obviously, there are some great modernists, but we're in post-modernism now. And a lot of the post-modernists, they're just doing things, firstly, that were already done and better ages ago. Like the idea of the flâneur, like this Flaubertian wanderer, or this Camus-type hero who wanders about town and just records their thoughts. And I've read a couple of these narratives now. In fact, it seems like that's all that's on some of these prize lists, are people just telling their banal existence, and it's so inspired and interesting because they happen to be seeing it. Nothing happens, and you bring no insight. Now, yeah, can that work as an aesthetic technique? Yeah, but it's been done. So it's not even like you're doing something like inventive or something shocking or something new. It's been done better before, long ago, and it's not interesting. It's just not interesting. It's like when you see some of these vlogs, social media posts, where people will keep certain things in to the video, like them sneezing or coughing, or do you know what I mean? Like they'll just keep something in that absolutely, like, why did you keep that in? It's because they're, again, I'm going to get so much hate for this. They're so narcissistic, egotistical, that they think everything they do is inspired and magical, and they love looking at themselves. So they think everyone else is going to love it as well. I'm sorry. We certainly do live in a world where appearance matters, and that's a shame. But we also do live in a world where your ideas matter. And, you know, being a good person matters, having morality matters, building people up and being positive matters. And if all you can bring to the conversation is just banal recording of your very everyday thoughts as you wander through town, an unnamed protagonist wanders through town and looks at things, who's that doing anything for? I don't think anybody's getting excited. I don't think anyone's picking up some of so I don't think anyone's picking up some of these prize winners, almost let slip a name there, and going, oh, I love this book. This is my Bible. I'm going to reread it. If I get washed up on a desert island, I want this book with me. No one's doing that, are they? Realistically, come on. So I don't see why these people are writing. I don't see how... And I mean, it's part of, I'll call it the literary pretentia. Harold Bloom called it the school of resentment. It's the same thing. The literary pretentia is an elitist class of people who also don't get what they're reading, but they want to exclude people. I think good literature and good reading should be inclusive. It's about healing divide, healing wounds, healing ourselves, learning to be more loving with ourselves. This is what I didn't like going to Oxford University, where the intellectual insecurity was so high that people that in order to build themselves up, they felt they had to tear other people down, shoot down your ideas. And I'm sorry, there's a few key areas that people can be very sensitive about. And if you find them, it's painful. Some people it's looks. Some people it's their intellect. Some people are very self-conscious about having, not being educated. Or potentially their ideas are silly. And if you keep shooting that down time and time again, well, firstly, they're not going to like you. And why should they? Because we like who likes us. And these academic circles, these institutions, they're just so elitist and so closed off. And so snobbish. And I don't think that's what good literature is about. I think good literature is a communal experience. We're communing with ourselves. We're communing potentially with whatever higher power that we believe in. We're communing with the author across time. And in things like the book club, the hardcore literature book club, we're communing with one another. And it's so rewarding. And we really relish that as an experience. And I just think some of these prize winners, sometimes they get it right, but very often they just suck the joy out of your life. That's my thoughts on the prize winners. I had to stop reading them, more or less. I was going to do a whole series where I'd do one per month, and I realised I just wasn't enjoying it. And I had to really work at appreciating something that really had nothing to be appreciated. And so I went, you know what? I'm going back to the good stuff. I'm reading Proust. I'm reading Austen, the Brontes. You can furnish your own examples. There's plenty of them. And time's ticking away. So let's read the good stuff. Let's read it lovingly. Let's read it together. And let's let the literary pretentia do what they're doing, and they'll let us do what we're doing. So that's my thoughts on the prize winners. Is this a controversial video? Potentially, but I don't know. I think if you're watching this, you might pretty much agree with me. If you have any other questions or anything for this channel that you'd like me to address, then let me know. I'd be happy to make this more interactive. So if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe, and drop a comment down below with your thoughts on the prize winners. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.